Everybody, we have got quite a treat for anybody that is a true ATLien, like everybody that's sitting at this table, and most of our listeners. You are living under a rock if you haven't heard of or are not following or have not at least reposted something from the Instagram account Butter.ATL. Today we have the man behind the media company, Brandon Butler. Welcome to Nightmare Radio Show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Thanks for the invite.
Yes. First off, thank you so much. Shot the shot in the DM, and you were like, sure. Like, to be honest, sometimes I be struggling with like imposter syndrome. Like, dang, what do I say? I get the motif that you don't think of yourself as much of a big deal as you are.
I always say don't believe your own hype. Don't believe the hype, especially not your own.
Okay, well, we about to hype you up, sir.
Well, I appreciate it.
For sure. But,
well, before Brittany gets started, I know you had, you guys, I'm not going to blame it on you. I know you have a team. But I know they were talking about the top 5 high schools in DeKalb County.
Yeah.
And with you being a Redan graduate yourself.
East Side.
okay,
East Side, real East Side shit going on.
Real
you feel
East
me?
Side shit.
I just had to let you know that Stevenson High School is the #1 high school in America.
And that's not up for
You
debate.
guys did not repost the other one like that. Y'all shouldn't even have posted that.
I'm gonna just sit back because I don't have a dog in this fight.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Uh-oh.
So I grew up I grew up from the East Side. I actually was at Redan when Stevenson first opened.
Uh-huh.
So like I remember when there was the whole big split between like the folks at Redan and Lithonia, and they kind of split us in half and kind of sent half the folks over to Stevenson. So I got respect for Stevenson. I got a lot of friends that went over there through the years, but everybody knows Redan's #1.
We're going to let you have it because you the guest. We're going to let you have that because you the guest.
But shout out to Redan.
Shout out to even we got windows now.
Yeah,
Y'all do have
heard.
windows
Yes.
now. Shout out to y'all.
Yes. I had some good times at Redan. Honestly, I did a tutorial at Redan because my best friend's mom was like super duper hyped up at the PTA.
I did summer
It was a
school
whole
every
lot.
day. I ain't going, I failed a class or two. I had to go to summer school every day, and it was cool. It wasn't bad.
With no windows.
No windows.
That's
It
you can
was cool, though.
concentrate. That's what I always say. That we didn't have windows, so you could concentrate.
So you can concentrate.
That's the
Focus on
excuse
your
we
study.
going with. Okay.
We'll let you have
We'll
that.
take it. We'll take it.
All right, so we've got so many things to discuss with you, but of course I just want to shout out or give you a chance to talk about the things that you got going on right now. You just had a spot with the guy from CNN.
Oh yeah, Richard Quest from Quest World of Wonders. So we did they came down to Atlanta and they were kind of digging into the culture and kind of wanted to understand what Atlanta was. I think when I was talking to him, he said that he used to live here in 1984.
Oh wow!
And I said, well, a lot of shit's changed since then.
Right.
So
It's a different world.
they gave us a segment. We came down at the gathering spot, had a good first half, and then we went down, took him down to Cascade
Oh yeah.
on a Sunday night to let him,
Oh, yeah.
vibe.
Yeah, you got to give them the real.
Yeah.
That's the only way. She the
She the West
she
Side,
on the west.
right?
She a West Side girl. So
We got a
excuse
cute
her.
little chronicle
Yeah.
at Cascade
It's
ourselves.
okay
I know.
because I feel you on the Redan with the no windows because they be on Douglas all the time because that's how we were.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you kind of sort of have become the voice. I call myself the Black culture aficionado, but I would say you're like the aficionado for Atlanta culture.
It's been interesting, I think when we, so again, growing up out here, growing up on the East Side, but always being in Atlanta, being around the city, I think that one of the things I even said in that CNN feature, right, is like anytime people talk about Atlanta, they always talk about the civil rights movement. They always
Yeah.
talk about stuff that happened 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years ago. And nobody's talking about modern Atlanta.
Right.
Again, it's always about Martin Luther King and, civil rights. And I mean, that stuff was awesome and it was great, but there's so much that's happening now that you can't, they were literally talking about Gone with the Wind still.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do that CNN conversation is because like, let's move this thing up. Again, y'all are still on this, antebellum like version of the South and
Right.
Atlanta's
Wow.
way, way past that.
Yeah.
So it was just it's been a good opportunity to kind of, at least give people a kind of a modern picture. Again, growing up around here, I always say that people in Atlanta, we never get a chance to tell our own stories.
Yeah.
And, especially when you work in like the marketing space and the agency space, what you see is these large brands because they want to go to places like New York, LA, Chicago, when they want to do work. So what happens is you basically get somebody's, Google search results version of Atlanta. And you can kind of tell when these out of town brands are trying to do stuff that they're not really tapped into the culture.
Listen,
Right.
They just looked at what was on like the first or second page. of
Right.
Google,
But but it's so much deeper than that.
so much deeper than that.
Do you struggle with the whole authentic version of Atlanta? because so many outside people are our patrons enjoy the content, but it's people in Atlanta that's like, man, but we want the real, in comparison to those other media outlets that are also providing content for Atlanta, just kind of sort of focused in a different way.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is, our version of Atlanta, right? And I think there's lots of different versions of it. We're just, using the platform to kind of tell our story and kind of talk to our experiences. Look, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Atlanta that we don't necessarily talk about. I said, we want to get, there's all kinds of content out there. I ain't trying to call nobody out and say, but,
right.
There's a lot of stuff that we don't post. There's a lot of stuff that we don't share. And I mean, there's arguments to say that stuff is also part of the culture, right?
Right.
I think for us, again, we are, one, I'm running a business, you know what I'm saying? So Butter is not just an Instagram page, it's a media company.
Right.
We operate as a media company. Our goal is to garner attention and redirect that in different ways. And Instagram is just one of the channels that we chose to launch with because that's where the attention was at when we started it, right?
Right.
If we were to start it today, we'd probably be on TikTok.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, I always say we're pretty platform agnostic. I don't care where the content shows up at. It can be on social, it can be on mobile, it could be a billboard, it could be a mural. Like, I don't care. To me, that's just, Butter just takes up space and attention in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
Right. And I noticed in another interview you had, I think some people were tripping about like some of the things you were posting, like if it wasn't more so catered to a certain specific audience, which is us. Does your company focus on like diversity and inclusion with, making, since Atlanta is a melting pot, do you guys make your content based off of diversity and inclusion, or is your company focusing on that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's always funny, right? Like, people have asked me in the past, like, is Butter a platform for black people? Is it a platform for this or that? I'm black. My experience is black.
Right.
And I think that you see through the content that we kind of come out, obviously we're going to lean into those spaces and do things that are authentic to me.
Right.
I didn't grow up in Alpharetta. I didn't grow up, in honestly spaces that were with a lot of white people around me. You know what I'm saying? So the content that you see on Butter kind of more reflects, I think, a more black experience. But I also say, like, Butter is a platform for people that care about and love Atlanta. So instead of, people, I understand people always want to kind of put us in a box, like, is it this or is it that? And I've had people ask me straight up. And I say, yeah, like, we do have a majority black and African-American audience, but Butter.
It's relatable for everyone that's an inhabitant of the city.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you grew up in Atlanta, you know what it's like to run through the Centennial Olympic Park sprinklers. That's not a black thing. That's a everybody
That's a thing.
Yeah.
But my thing is, I also feel like, why is that an issue? If that was the audience that you wanted to cater to, like, why is that a problem? I mean, it's your business. Like, I mean, it's white people have taken up so many spaces and places. Why is it not okay for us to create something just for us?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, again, people are always kind of trying to put stuff in a box. That's just a human kind of characteristic,
easy,
just to say, okay, like, I need to place this somewhere so that I can kind of understand what it is. And me, one, I know that people kind of think like that, so I try to kind of keep us a little nebulous too, on purpose, to be like, yeah, we can fit in lots of different spaces. Because, again, like, that's what it takes to survive.
Exactly.
Again, the reality is, I tell people, like, I don't care who follows the content or supports the platform as long as they, like, love and respect Atlanta. And a lot of people look at Butter too, not just from people who are here, but people that are coming to the city.
Yes.
And so, again, I think it's also important that, again, when you have, other folks putting out content about all the bad stuff that's going on,
right?
We just kind of try to take a different tone. And if that makes me not as black because I don't want to show fights, you know what I'm saying? If that makes me not as black, like, I tell you, we can compare notes. I promise you, I can, tell you about my day.
I'll black your ass in a minute.
I can tell you about my day from the atrium to my first job at South DeKalb Mall.
Right.
To,
some real East Side shit, of course.
Going to Morehouse, to Georgia Tech, I've done it all.
To Georgia Southern, because I'm an alumni of Georgia Southern as well.
Right. So you guys have had similar experiences from,
so, because like I said, we was trying to find out, what's the real tea. Morehouse, Georgia Tech, Georgia Southern. Where'd you get your degree from?
Yeah, so I went to Morehouse on scholarship.
Okay.
And honestly, I always tell people, it just wasn't really for me. And I got, honestly, it's crazy because I have a lot of friends who I've met in my first year that I'm still friends with to this day. And I was actually talking to somebody about it the other day. The biggest regret that I have about not staying there is just that, a lot of those guys have a really strong local network of other black folks, which is something that, that's just something that you can't get unless you go to an HBCU. So while I do have a network of some of those folks that I just know, I ended up leaving because I wanted something different. Having grown up here in the city,
I feel that completely.
Having grown up here in the city, I was super independent. I'm an only child. I faked my birth certificate and got my first job when I was 13.
Oh my God.
I had my own car. I used to do stuff. So it was weird for me when I went to college. That was the first time I ever had rules. And again, I was a high performer, had, good grades. I went there on scholarship, but like, I just wasn't jiving with the idea of like I had a curfew. I wasn't really kicking it with the idea that I couldn't have my car on campus as a freshman. Like, I'm like, look, I'm just downtown.
Right.
And so there was a girl I was dating at the time, and I ended up going down there to like visit her at Georgia Southern. And I said, this is what I thought college was going to be like. I always thought you'd be in like a college town.
Yeah. Georgia Statesboro is that for sure, because it ain't nothing else but the college.
Right. It's nothing else
until you get to Savannah.
Yeah. I even used to work in Savannah part time, and I just thought it was so cool.
We all did.
Yeah. I just thought it was so cool. Like, coming from, again, me personally, right?
Yeah.
Like coming from the city and kind of going to a place where I always say, like, when you're in college, that's one of the few times that everybody else around you is kind of at the same point in their life.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just like really cool that I could like go into this town and like, let's say I go to a restaurant or a bar or the grocery store. If I see another person in there, they're more than likely in college at the same point, as opposed to when I was at Morehouse. If I go out to a bar or a restaurant, it's just
anybody in there.
Yeah. I don't know. For me personally, that was something that I didn't know that I wanted until I kind of experienced it. And that's the advice I give to people all the time is I do think that if you're going to go to college, it's about the network, it's about the relationships, but I do think there's something special about being around other people at the same point in their lives. Y'all all kind of being in the same, ecosystem.
I never heard it. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I was
just going to say that was some of the most broke fun I've ever had.
Right.
I never heard it put like that, but that was another reason or choice that made me choose Georgia Southern. All my other choices and prospectives were out of the state, and they were all HBCU choices. And so when the money, when it came down to the nickel and dime, and the cents wasn't making sense, and my mom and dad had proposed like Georgia State and stuff like that. My mom was working for Georgia Pacific at the time, which like shares the campus with Georgia State. I'm like, bro, I'm just gonna be downtown watching you walk across the street to get on the train. I want the experience, but you're right. Being in the same place where everybody else is also at that same place in their life is helpful. And being at Georgia Southern kind of sort of really made me appreciate being in Atlanta, because I thought that Georgia was Atlanta and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Boy, me too. I unfortunately I ended up in Alabama in the first tenure of my college experience. However, I just knew I could not go to college here with Obsessions down the street on Friday and the Libra on Wednesdays.
Yes, the Libra.
I was not gonna get a degree. I was just not gonna do that. So, but you have been running Butter since about 2018, would you say?
Yeah, we launched in 2018. Very
humble beginnings with 500 followers.
I think I was in the beginning number of that. Like I remember pushing that stuff out.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I remember when we first launched, we had like a launch party, and I think we were like right around 200 followers. And I remember thinking to myself, if we can just get to 300 before this launch party. And I think we got to 300. And I remember I literally used to screenshot every time we'd go up by 100. So I can, I actually got it saved on my phone. It's like 500, 600, and I remember we hit 1,000. I was like, shit, we got 1,000 followers.
Right.
You know what I mean? And because like I personally wasn't a heavy IG user. I always tell folks I'd probably maybe sent and received 2 DMs in my whole life by the time we started Butter. So
right.
I mean, I was just like in awe of like, wow, we got 300, 500 people that have heard of us. So those were some fun times.
That's amazing. We want to ask you some questions. We want to put it official,
the state of Atlanta address.
Okay.
We need to know what's going on. But first, before we do that, you also have your own, you still in the corporate world, like
Dagger, right? Dagger Agency.
So how is that balance? Because right now I'm like a Libra over here. I'm imbalanced. Like I still want to have my corporate side and do my thing over there.
Yeah.
And I'm still over here doing my thing over here. So how do you find the good balance? Because you sit
VP
pretty
of
high in the company, right?
Yeah, I'm executive vice president of so it's interesting, right? Like after I finished up my MBA at Georgia Tech, I did what most MBAs do, which is go into consulting, and I was working for a company called Accenture. They wrote me a check, and I just was like, I can't turn that much money down. And I learned very quickly. I was like, I ain't feeling this. And so actually I ended up talking to the folks over at Dagger. They're a strategic creative agency out here in the city. And, we just had some conversations, and I ended up joining them at that time, I was the VP of technology and project management, because my background's in tech, obviously that's what I was kind of doing. Everything was cool. And they were actually kicking around the original idea of like Butter, right? And so I was talking to the CEO, and we just always kind of talked about what we kind of called a media company mindset. It's like, just the idea that like the most successful brands operate like media companies. They create content, think like Red Bull, right? Like even though Red Bull is selling, energy drinks, they're just doing stuff and they're making content. And so honestly, we kind of incubated the idea right there within Dagger, right? And they ended up launching it. And at the beginning, I wasn't actually involved with it. It was just like a side project that like one of my project managers was managing. Then we kind of decided, like, because it wasn't really, there was some hits and misses. It wasn't really going in the direction they kind of wanted it. And so we kind of made the recommendation that we should like double down and focus on Atlanta. Just as like, there's so much going on here.
Right.
Like this is the story. This is the city to kind of build something around. And plus there's nothing around here like it. When you just think about where people get their information from, the Creative Loafings, the Atlanta magazine.
Oh, I love Creative Loafing.
Yeah, but like even most people, our age don't necessarily, go look for that kind of stuff. Right. So we just want to do something a little bit different. But long story short, it kind of took off there, but, it wasn't really working. I got involved and it, the team, we kind of reorganized, reprioritized. It took off. And so we actually split it off from Dagger. So essentially Dagger's now like a kind of a parent company, almost an investor in the business.
Oh,
we like
nice.
run it as a separate business. So the good thing is that I still have, a corporate, relationship with them, but I run this as like a separate kind of autonomous unit, and we do our own thing. So
wow,
that is a blessing.
So
That is.
I was
and
just gonna say
the creativity, the freedom that you have to do that.
yeah, well, you gotta, it's the east side too. You gotta hustle, right? Like
Hello,
you
you got to hustle.
Like
ain't no stopping the hustle.
So, this is like one thing I always tell folks is, again, just, for example, like one of the ways that I knew this was going to work is I said, like, we got to make money with this thing.
Yeah.
And so originally when we were launching it, the goal wasn't to make money, but I was like, well, if we're not making money, it's only a matter of time before this thing implodes. And so, really quickly, we started kind of tapping into some relationships, got some brand deals going on. And then that kind of got them in that mindset to say, okay, there's more here. And, the rest is kind of history. But, it's really cool to kind of turn your full-time employment like back into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's amazing. The part.
That's amazing.
That's really the hack right there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yes. All right, so let's get into the State of Atlanta address. Buckhead turning into the hood. How do we feel about that? How are you feeling about that? Are we giving them their just due by tearing up their city, or is it the outsiders coming in and messing up our beautiful city?
Oh, it's 100% the outsiders.
For sure.
That's not the city. I mean, I don't know if y'all go to Buckhead still.
Not at all.
Not without a bulletproof vest.
So, again, like if you're out here, your first place to hang out probably isn't Buckhead or like Lenox Mall in general. Right. If you're from Atlanta, like
the rappers did it. It was the rappers.
And again, like so when people come from out of town, that's what they know. They go to Lenox. They think those are the areas. So one, I mean, you see that part. I think also. A lot of this stuff too, if you just want me to be like super honest, is being, I think, amplified just to get everybody riled up ahead of the mayoral election.
That was the next point.
The next question.
So, even when you kind of look at the way that they talk about stuff, like I saw something on the news last week, or somebody sent me a clip. I think it might be like Fox News or something, but it was like the Hollywood of Atlanta is being terrorized. Like,
wow, I never really even.
I'm sorry. They call it the Beverly Hills of Atlanta. They said the Beverly Hills of Atlanta is being terrorized, and I was like, okay, first of all, I have never.
Who named it the Beverly Hills of
Atlanta?
This is the problem when everybody else tells our story. That's number one.
Exactly.
And number two, who said the Beverly? Who said that?
Who said that?
Right. But you see what I'm saying? The way they position it.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody that lives in L.A. or just some other city and you have no context for Atlanta, you know what Beverly Hills is,
right?
And you have an idea like, okay, that's where like rich people and there's nice houses and there's mansions, and they're like, why are they being terrorized by black people?
It's the word choice for me.
Right. It's the word
that's
choice.
used specifically to depict a picture.
But the thing about it is, a lot of white people aren't really being terrorized.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say. Excuse me. It's the black people
folks
tearing up other black people stuff. Like it's plenty. Phipps Plaza has definitely evolved from it just being a whole lot of white-owned businesses. There's a lot of black-owned businesses in Buckhead. So we tearing ourselves down, essentially, if you think about it. And then a lot of people who are prominent in Buckhead are black people going to the mall
Yeah.
but anybody's car window can get smashed at this
Yes.
point.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like, so this is the tech side of me coming out for a second, right? Because the thing is, the secret weapon for Butter is like I do creative, but I used to be a developer. I understand how all this technology works. I used to program, build apps, all that kind of stuff, right? So I always say you got to ask yourself certain questions, right? When you think about even just social media in general, ask yourself, how many times have you seen a black person die or dying on social media?
Too many times to count.
How many times have you seen a non-black person die or die on social media?
Never.
Yep.
Think about that. Just think about it. Now, does that mean that crime does not happen to them, or does it get experienced?
But that image, that narrative is protected.
And then how come that content is allowed to go out? See, Facebook, for example, Facebook has entire teams of people that are literally dedicated to not letting dick pics slip out. You can do the research. Do the research. I'm dead serious. Like, you would be surprised how bad of a problem that actually is. I'm so
That's
serious.
not funny.
I'm so serious right now. And like, it's so bad that they can't even do what's called machine learning, which is actually, they can't program pictures of everybody's junk into a machine
so
they can automate
so they can know that this is such
They actually have to have a team of over 1,000 people
that are dedicated out here to sniff out the dick pics.
that are just dedicated to stopping dick pics.
Lord have mercy.
This is the question, right? If you got the dick pic team, how come
Holding it down,
you
the
can't,
DPT.
how come you can't have the like non-black people murdered on social media team?
Please.
Right.
And it's so, even given to how, like, TikTok, how the specifics are set up for TikTok. You can't even write anything black specifically, but yeah, everything else is.
And it's interesting too. If you really pay attention to it, you'll notice that anytime an election is getting ready to come up, they crank up the volume a little bit. And I told I've
on
said
unrest and disharmony.
Yeah, because what happens is they let more stuff through.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, that's all you see. Again, and it's crazy when you just take a step back and you ask yourself, how come you're able, like, literally, I can open up Instagram right now, and there are certain pages you can go to. You can see a person literally taking
laying down,
laying down, bleeding. And the thing is, like, how is that content even allowed to exist on? Okay, even if you upload
and people are perpetuating
people are
that
sharing
content.
it,
Yes.
right. So ask yourself, when is the last time you've seen a non-black person lose their life on social media? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not saying they should be getting it posted, but why is it that we only see ourselves like that?
Yeah,
and why does that content constantly get let through? So you put that behind the narrative of the stuff that's going on with
we have to be
Buckhead.
better gatekeepers.
Yeah, and it's just going to get more and more cranked up, because what happens is it makes people divisive, and it leads up to like mayoral elections where it's easier to control folks, and it's easier to control folks. It happened the same thing around the election this year. It happened last year around all, like, that's one of the reasons why with Butter we launched this our ATL text line, is because if you even go back when Trump was running the first time, there were actually groups that were going online and creating like fake protests to get people in like situations where they would literally organize a protest with the KKK on.
Was that the Antifa people that were doing that?
It was a lot of folks doing that stuff, but like they would literally send out like invites to like protests for two groups, right? They'd send one to the KKK and one to like, Black Lives Matter, but they literally put them on like different sides of the street, knowing that folks were going to fight. What happened last year when all the social justice stuff was coming out was there were so many flyers and protests and things going out that nobody knew where to go. And so that was one of the reasons why we stepped in and said, we're going to become the record and source of truth. Because I saved the videos. I actually had a whole video thing that I posted, and I said, watch out for the okie doke. Because if you go back, and I can show it to you, if you go back and look at the groups of people that were not doing damage, but look at who was leading them.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There was always a group of like 4 to 5 white people leading an entire mass of black people and saying, let's go over here and protest.
Right.
Who are those people?
And where they come from?
And where they come from?
And why are we letting them lead us in our fight?
Exactly.
Representation.
Putting you in situations you shouldn't be in, right? So again, I think all these are just different elements of it. But yeah, I mean, things are crazy right now, but I think that they're 100% getting amplified in a way that's not 100% accurate to like what's really going on.
Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely intentional.
Well, with the mayor race being said, you think Kasim gonna return to his throne or nah?
No comment.
All right, moving on.
All right.
We talked about a lot of these other things. Okay, so old Atlanta versus New Atlanta. And I'm sure you from the real old Atlanta.
Old Atlanta.
Because there's a difference in the old Atlantas. Because in some places, or in some instances, I feel like I'm from old Atlanta. But your old Atlanta is just a little bit different because you mentioned the strip club.
Well, so one thing I always say, if you have to think, so my belief is old Atlanta started or stopped around the '96 Olympics.
Wow.
Everything like post '96 Olympics is what I kind of start to call New Atlanta, because that's when, again, a lot of the, the Olympics caused so much change with all the hoods and all the projects and everything they tore down, moved all these folks around, started reinvigorating the city from a financial standpoint. So like that was the start of Atlanta kind of becoming the Atlanta that we all know today. And this is just my opinion, right? But like old Atlanta to me is like post '96 Olympics. You know what I'm saying? That's if you were growing up going to Fulton County Stadium and the Omni. You know what I mean? And like in that era of Atlanta, I kind of look at it like that. But I also say too, there's a difference between being an OG and an old head.
Yeah.
Right. So like I kind of look at myself as a little bit more of a OG in that sense, to where even though I love my Outkast and everything else, I got respect for what's happening right now. So like I'm not hating on Lil Baby or Lil Keed or anything else. You know what I'm saying? I got respect for what's going on, because if not, I'd just be sitting around saying it was better back in my day.
Back in my day.
This riffraff ain't what was going on.
Right. So you think you reach unk status?
I think I have.
I think unk would be suitable. You on the younger side of the unks, but
I'm right. But I think I've reached unk status on that. So,
Me too. I'm an auntie as well. Okay, last question, and then last question. What is your best nostalgic Atlanta moment?
My best nostalgic Atlanta moment.
Let's break it up in half. Your Atlanta moment and your East Side moment, since we are in like company.
All right, let's see. My best East Side moment, honestly would be, there was some probably like just going to like old football games and basketball games, like
a good time at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, having a good time at Memorial Stadium or Panthersville, you know what I'm saying, or like going to different schools. Like, again, I remember when there was the first Stevenson and Lithonia game, and literally this humongous fight broke out.
Listen,
during the
they was horrible.
And it just like, there were just like all these moments. But I think like the games, now that I kind of look back on it, were just, because it was just fun. You know what I'm saying? And
I would say that's my favorite too.
Yeah, I would say when Jamboree was at Memorial.
Jamboree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the Battle of the Bands, you know
Battle
what I'm
of the
saying?
Bands,
like back at the Dome. Like I think those were kind of like some of my favorite, especially looking back on it now, because again, you were able to just kind of go out, have fun. And I mean, the worst
riding the train to the Battle of the Bands was like, an adventure.
Worst thing that's going to happen is somebody going to get stomped out. Right?
Exactly.
That's like the worst thing that would happen. But like other than that, you weren't worried about nobody shooting up the place and nothing crazy. It was just like, all right, somebody got stomped out. Now y'all go on back.
And then we was encouraging, beat that hoe.
Right.
Beat that hoe.
Yes.
Beat that. Okay.
So I mean, that's one. I'd probably say, one of my, best Atlanta moments. I mean, if we're just talking about, I don't know, is this recent history? Is this growing up? Like, what do you...
Whatever's nostalgic to you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I'd say a good Atlanta moment was... one of my favorite ones was being in Mercedes-Benz when Atlanta United won the championship.
Oh wow.
And
16.
Yeah, and the reason why is because the year prior I was in Houston when the Falcons did the whole 28-3 thing, right? So I do remember I was like, you know what, we made it to the championship, and I said, if Atlanta's gonna win a championship in Atlanta, I'm gonna be damn there to see it. And I remember me and my best friend sat at the very top of Mercedes. I mean, like they had like, I think some folding chairs they had put up there basically.
Oh wow.
But we were there for the game, and it was just a great moment, especially knowing that just the previous year we had that took that.
That heartbreak.
It's all right. And I don't know if the Falcons gonna be talking about Nathaniel this year either. So we'll see.
We're gonna see. We're gonna
pray. We're gonna pray. You gonna stick
beside him?
Stick
beside him? Them your birds, you gonna stick
beside
my birds?
I'm gonna stick beside them.
You have no other choice. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
pleasure.
no problem.
Yes.
Thanks for the invite.
We enjoyed the conversation. Tell everybody how they can follow Butter.ATL or anything you got coming up. Let everybody know how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, just, everybody knows, follow us on social primarily. So Butter.ATL on Instagram, or Butter.ATL.com. When you go to Butter.ATL.com, you can also sign up for our email newsletter. It's one of the best newsletters in the city, original content, multiple times a week to your inbox, written by one of the best journalists in the city, Mike Jordan, our editor-in-chief. Follow us on social. We're also on Twitter, Butter Atlanta. And we got some really big things coming up in August. So I'm really excited. I think what we're going to do in August is going to show people that Butter is way bigger than an Instagram channel. So, stay tuned.
We want to tap in with that for sure.
It's going to be everywhere. So I'm really excited about the next month.
Okay.
Yes. Well, congratulations on everything.